I had lost some of that bite. And I had a real talk with myself. I was like, yo, bro, you accomplished a lot. It's like, yo, you made it to where you wanted to make it to. Do you even want to keep going? Do you want to retire right now? I thought, and I was like, what's the answer? And I felt the answer immediately. And it was like, nah, not yet. If I go out and close the chapter, not saying I will, but if I do, I want to do it at the highest level of achievement and skill set that I ever been in my life.
It's pretty ironic because it ain't no follow from me.
No one is truly my peer or can relate to what I'm going through in life more than these people right here. Y'all niggas are cemented forever. I will hope that I'm cemented forever. And if not, I will be, you know, when it's all said and done. I'm more interested in the relationship because I also see a time when I'm not doing it.
Everything is supposed to go away eventually. And it's like, oh, this guy used to be famous and then he fell off. What happened? And they want to point to, they did this and this and they made some sort of mistake. Instead of thinking that, look, it's kind of crazy they got famous in the first place.
When they them kids that's listening gon' grow up and get too old for that shit that made you blow up. Now your show's looking light cause they don't show up, which unfortunately means the money's slower. Now you scrambling and hoping to get hot again, but you forgot you only popped cause you was riding trends. Now you old news and you going through regrets cause you never bought that house, but you got a Benz. I'm just telling you what's probably gonna happen when you rapping about the type of shit you rapping about. It's a faster route to the bottom.
For the past 10 years, this album has been handcrafted with one intention, a personal challenge to myself to create my best work, to do on my last what I was unable to do on my first. I had no way of knowing how much time, focus, and energy it would eventually take to achieve this, but despite the countless challenges along the way, I knew in my heart I would one day get to the finish line. I owe it first and foremost to myself, and secondly, I owed it to hip-hop, the fall off, J. Cole. We're gonna skip the rapping on this one, lobbies and gentlegrams, because we got a lot of bars to dissect. A lot of stories told that we gotta unfold by J. Cole. So come with me down this hole, but first, make sure the like and subscribe buttons stay swole. Going into this album, the world was confused. You probably were too. What does the fall off truly mean? Is this Cole putting his legacy in his own hands, leaving the room before he's kicked out of it? Is this some weird way of saying that he'll never fall off, or that he already has? Does Cole give us an answer to these questions on the album itself? First, let's understand the statements Cole has made behind the birth of the fall-off concept itself. A key detail to remember is the fact that J. Cole always wanted to come in the game with a unanimous classic, a college dropout, an Illmatic, a Reasonable Doubt, Ready to Die, something that people couldn't deny was a 10 out of 10. But due to label politics and pressure to deliver a commercial success, his first album was compromised to an extent.
Made the biggest hit of my career. Told me Nas heard you singing when he hate that shit. Said you the one, yo, why you make that? Can't believe I let Nas down.
And that's why Cole wanted to complete his initial mission of delivering that classic with what could be now his final album, The Fall Off. So where did the fall off emerge from? Well, 2018 is the first time he introduces the concept of the fall off. The outro to his album KOD 1985, Intro to the Fall Off, where he, sends a stark warning to rappers like Lil Pump, who are kind of just in it for the money, in it for the mumbling, letting them know the lifestyle they lead can lead them down a bad path. That's a video for another day. But Cole says he actually thought of the title originally in 2016 when he started working on For Your Eyes Only. And he says the title captures the concept of a decline or a loss of edge.
It's pretty ironic cause it ain't no follow from me. After the fall off, I promise I'm coming and selling out Wrigley's. Just cop the fall off and he'll explain. Is it the end of the chapter? Happily ever after. Waiting for you to fall off like the album I'm making.
Now, he's officially been teasing this album since like 2020, so already 5 years now. We haven't heard a real Cole album, unless you count Might Delete Later, but that was kind of like a mixtape. We haven't heard a real Cole project in 4 years, and it's ironic because he was criticizing Kendrick for barely dropping any music. But when describing what this title truly means, it feels like Cole was kind of conflicted in it, right? He reflected on how the source of the inspiration for this concept came after Forest Hills Drive, where he feels like he accomplished the highest heights of his career at that point in time. Remember, he was facing those big challenges from Drake and Kendrick Lamar to meet the same type of critical praise Kendrick was getting and the same type of commercial success that Drake had.
The game changed the minute Drake dropped So Far Gone. And I was already going to put some of these album songs on the warm-up, but the minute he dropped So Far Gone, it was like, not only am I going to put these on there, but I'm going to put all of these motherfuckers on there because...
Probably you have to stack the deck.
Yeah, because I have to show them I got to come and play my best hand too.
He finally accomplished that with Forest Hills Drive when he just, didn't let his insecurities get the best of him. He was meditating a lot, removed himself from social media, and really locked in on some conceptual storytelling vibes. But after that came the tour, the hits. It felt like Cole was on top of the world, and he says that's when he felt comfortable. And he realized at one point in time when trying to cook up his next project, like, wow, I really lost my edge. He was suffering writer's block. That lack of confidence was in full effect. And he's like, oh, this is what the fall off is.
This is 2015 after my biggest album, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. I got off tour. Bro, I was comfortable. I was comfy. I was watching TV shows for the first time, bro, since I was in my teens. Like, I had never done this because I had been going nonstop with a big goal.
And he stepped back at that period of time and asked himself, like, you accomplished a lot. You can just live, drive off on the coast, have a happy life, forget about everything else. Your legacy is cemented. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to keep going? And ultimately, he chose to keep going.
Every day I open my laptop up, try to make a beat, and then I try to write. And then when I start writing, I'll be like, man, this kind of ass, if I'm being honest with myself. And it was like, oh, you hella comfortable. I had lost some of that bite, and I had a real talk with myself. I was like, yo, bro, you accomplished a lot. It's like, yo, you made it to where you wanted to make it to. Do you even want to keep going? Do you want to retire right now? I thought, and I was like, what's the answer? And I felt the answer immediately, and it was like, nah, not yet. If I go out and close the chapter, not saying I will, but if I do, I want to do it at the highest level of achievement and skill set that I ever been in my life. So I was like, yo, that's going to take time. So since then, I was like, oh, there's an album for this, and I ain't know the name. And over time, the name and the story and my skills grew. It's a level I want to reach for myself.
But ultimately, he's very vague on whether or not the fall off as a concept, as an album, truly means that this is when he falls off, or this is when he gracefully exits, right? Like, it sounds like with this concept, he's almost trying to redefine what the fall off means, almost like a graceful exit instead of like kind of being forced out due to an apparent lack of quality or inspiration. But does that mean this is the final project? If it does, that's okay. But if the core of this concept is to show how during that pivotal moment in time, you had a conversation with yourself internally and realized you didn't want to stop, you didn't want to fall off, then why would you center the entire concept and rollout of this album as if this is truly where you leave it all behind?
I want to go out having every ability sharpened, you know what I mean? So that's when I was like, yo, there's an album for this. There's songs that have never been heard where it was like at some point in time that was on the fall off. I've had maybe 6 iterations of this album.
Don't get it confused. J. Cole for years has teased the idea of retirement. Even when talking about the quote-unquote Big Three before the big battle happened, Cole had said he wanted to get closer to Drake and Kendrick as friends because they were the only ones in the game that truly knew the type of level he was trying to achieve. They were the only ones who could relate to everything Cole had been through, and when it was all said and done, which it very realistically could be done soon, he wanted to remain close with them.
No one is truly my peer or can relate to what I'm going through in life more than these people right here. I've been trying to absolutely make an effort, like, as time goes on, to like strip the competition from it. Like, y'all niggas are cemented forever. I will hope that I'm cemented forever. And if not, I will be, when it's all said and done. In my mind, it's how my mentality is. Like, the competition part, I've stripped away, and I'm now on some shit like, man, I'm more interested in the relationship because I also see a time when I'm not doing this.
And don't get it confused, later in this video you'll see as we break down the album, Cole definitely touches on the fact that the idea of competition and trying to be the best in the genre can tear people apart. And every detail attached to this project was very intentional. From the date it was released, February 6, 2026, 2626 being the same digits as the nickname of his hometown of North Carolina, Fayetteville, 26, to the album cover even being a picture of his childhood home, the first recording setup that he ever made his first beat and wrote his first rhyme in.
I begged my mom every day for a beat machine, every day for like a year and a half. And when I was 15, she made it happen, and she got this thing right here. It's my very first beat machine. I know y'all use Fruity Loops. I'm on Logic. Nobody's using analog things anymore, but this was the first thing in like the year 2000. It's a sampler. It don't come with barely no sounds, and I had to figure out how to use this. And that's when I started making my own beats, writing my own songs. It all started on this machine right here.
And beyond that, you can look at Cole's entire discography as a chronological order of where he is at that point in time. Shout out to Joey, Gotham Hip Hop. He broke it down perfectly. The come up is Cole moving to New York, coming up into a bigger city trying to make it in the game. The warm up is preparing for the game to start, metaphorically, Friday Night Lights is when those lights first flicker onto him. The songs on this project were really meant to be his debut album, but this is where the game begun. His official debut album was Cole waiting to get off the sidelines and get into the game, showing the world he's ready. And by Born Sinner, he's a proven star. But
I study for a living.
He starts dealing with the dark sides that come with fame, which he touches on this album. We'll break it down shortly. But by 2014 Forest Hills Drive, Cole returns home, finds himself again, finds peace, and it's here where we get, in my opinion, Cole's best work. For Your Eyes Only sees Cole challenging himself, touching on deeper concepts and more serious issues. By KOD, he expands further on more serious concepts and gives advice to the next generation, officially introducing the fall-off concept on the final track of KOD, 1985, Intro to the Fall Off.
I know you think this type of revenue is never ending, but I wanna take a minute just to tell you that ain't true. When dating kids that's listening gon' grow up and get too old for that shit that made you blow up. Now your show's looking like cause they don't show up, which unfortunately means the money's slower. Now you scrambling and hoping to get hot again, but you forgot you only popped cause you was riding trends. Now you old news and you going through regrets cause you never bought that house, but you got a Benz and a bunch of jewels. I ain't judging you, I'm just telling you what's probably gonna happen when you rapping about the type of shit you rapping about. It's a faster route to the bottom. I wish you good luck. I'm hoping for your sake that you ain't dumb as you look.
And after this, we get the off-season and Might Delete Later, which really just show Cole kind of flexing his technical abilities. The off-season literally acting as an off-season before the grand finale, where he's just kind of practicing his jump shot and showing off his skills. And now, here we are at the fall-off. Is this where Cole looks back on his career, near the endpoint, and provides reflection from the top of the hill? Or is it the start of a brand new chapter? Or is this where he burns it all down? Like I read you guys in the intro, this was a message that Cole wrote at the beginning of the music video to the only single he teased off the project. A song where he's rapping about his entire life, reflecting on it in reverse order from the moment he dies to the moment he's born. And he's letting you know here that this album will be him accomplishing on his last project what he wasn't able to do on his first. An album 10 years in the making with the sole challenge of creating his best work. Did he do that? Well, stick around to the end of this video for my opinions on the album, but we're first gonna break down the full thing front to back. The very first trailer that we got for the album saw Cole washing his Lamborghini truck by himself at a regular everyday car wash. Then he goes to a regular everyday diner and eats, while a narrator explains that the irony in a fall-off is that no one takes the time to admire the fact that it's so rare for someone to get on in the first place. Instead, they want to point to people losing their touch or their spark. And we should instead focus on the greatness that got you to a point where you could even have a fall-off.
Everything is supposed to go away eventually, especially in like show business. And it's like, oh, this guy used to be famous and then he fell off. What happened? And they want to point to, they did this and this and they made some sort of mistake. Instead of thinking that, look, it's kind of crazy they got famous in the first place. So few people reach that level that, yes, of course, it's not going to last forever because somebody else has to take that spot. And that's how show business has been since forever.
Though I think one thing's for certain, with this album, Cole was on a mission to show the world why he's so great in the first place. And if this is the moment that he ends it all, at least he's going out with a bang. Now, Cole explained how this album not only came to be, but how it came to be 2 discs. And the explanation for that was interesting. The fall-off cover that is currently circulating is a picture that I took on a disposable camera when I was 15 years old. My very first studio setup. My first beats were made in that spot, surrounded by my mother's CD collection that I would comb through looking for samples. The first full song I ever made came to life in that chair that you see in that picture. I sat for hours in a zone I had never experienced before until I was done writing a track that I titled The Storm. I probably rapped it out loud 50 times back to back, my young mind blown that I had actually wrote something quote-unquote this great. I called Nervous Wreck immediately to ask if I could come over to the shelter to record it. The mental space I entered writing that joint was a feeling I will attempt to explain, but I doubt I will do it justice. It was the strongest possible combination of creativity, the imagination at work, focus in search of the next line, faith, belief that the next line will come, and excitement in knowing that this thing being written is truly something special, that I imagine one can't understand until they've been in it. It's like God letting you into heaven for a few hours. Then, even after it's time to leave, there's a lasting glow, a high enough fulfillment that stays with you for days. And now every time you sit down to write, you'll close your eyes, cross your fingers, and hope he'll open the gates for you again. The picture of where it all started for me felt fitting for an album that I made with the ending in mind. It had been the cover of the Falloff for about the past 7 years, perfect in my mind. However, 2 years ago, after the events that still feed the algorithm till this day, I became incredibly re-inspired, and the album slowly blossomed into a double disc as the concept expanded. I felt there should be an additional cover that represented that, something just as strong as the first, with my face on it, so that when I look back on this in 20 years, I can see an image of who I was at the time that I released the project that I worked on for so long. This is the cover. So as you can see, not only was this album about creating something that's your best body of work, but it was also about defining that feeling of reaching a point that feels like heaven while you're writing your rhymes. Defining what inspiration truly feels like, since again, the idea of the Falloff derived from a moment where Cole felt creatively bankrupt. And then in that moment, 2 years ago, when his back was against the wall during the battle, his pen was tested and he ultimately folded. It brought Cole back to that place of hunger where he reflected on what makes him great and the legacy he wants to leave behind. Now, just like the front cover of the Falloff being an image of his childhood home in the first studio setup he had where he recorded his first rhyme, the back cover of the album, which featured the entire double disc track list, also had an image of Cole's childhood home. But this time it didn't reflect him, it reflected the artist who inspired him. Magazine covers of Cannabis, Eminem, 50 Cent, Exhibit, DMX, and more all scattered the walls. And as you can see, the two different discs are named Disc 29 and Disc 39. That was intentional as well. Cole delivered a message with this cover that said, "Some of the very first verses for my Come Up mixtape were written when I was just 19 years old. The title of that project, The Come Up, the first one I would ever release, it had a double meaning. There was the obvious one, my ambitions to come up in the rap game. The second one, though, was more subtle, my physical change of the location to do so. I was a delusional teenager from Fayetteville, North Carolina, who had decided to leave home and quote-unquote come up to New York City on a dream-chasing mission. When you listen to that project, you hear a college kid with a real sharp pen, telling the world how he's going to make it and proudly put his unknown city on the map in the process. Towards the end of the come up, a couple skits tell a common story for me at that age. Me driving back home from school on a holiday break, calling my mom to let her know I'm a few hours away, then calling my homeboys, excited to let them know that I'm back in town, asking where the party's at. The Falloff, a double album made with the intentions to be my last, brings the concept of my first project full circle. Disc 29 tells a story of me returning to my hometown at age 29, a decade after moving to New York and accomplishing what would have been seemed impossible to most. I was at a crossroads now with the three loves of my life, my women, my craft, and my city. Disc 39 gives insight into my mindset during a similar trip home, this time as a 39-year-old man, older and a little closer to peace. Without giving away too much more, here's the back cover of the Falloff. All pictures in this version of the album were shot by me. The front and back cover are photographs I took when I was 15. The back cover that includes this track list is a picture I took of the walls in my bedroom at the time. Thank you to every artist and photographer that cleared these pictures. I woke up every morning as a teenager quite literally looking up to y'all. When this album releases, please know that you, in some deeper metaphysical type of way, are in the music too. Now, just to give some added context here, remember how we reviewed at the beginning of this video that the concept for the Falloff actually derived when J. Cole released Forest Hills Drive, saw all the success that came with it, became incredibly comfortable due to that success, and then had to question himself on if this is where he wanted to end things or if he wanted to keep going. And ultimately, the answer to that was the Falloff, was that he wanted to go out swinging with an undisputed classic. J. Cole was around 29 years old when that project dropped. It was likely that trip back to his hometown, right after Forest Hills Drive had released, that left him in this mindset of comfort and confusion. That's why the first disc of this album, Disc 29, is named after that trip he took back home, where the concept of the album was birthed. Meanwhile, 10 years after Forest Hills Drive is when the battle happened. The Falloff had already been in the making for 10 years. But after threatening to put your favorite rapper's neck in a noose and ultimately untying the knot at the very last second, J. Cole chose peace, went back home at 39 years old, reflected on his career, and realized there was an added layer to this Falloff. That ultimately, when you're at peace with what you've accomplished and what you've become, you can derive greatness and fulfillment from that feeling alone. So while his first mixtape, The Come Up, details his actual come up to New York City, making it big for the first time, and then taking that trip back home, interacting with his friends and family when he's now a star in the making, The Fall Off brings it back full circle to reflect on different moments of traveling back home when his back was against the wall. Track 1, 29 Intro. What you hear on this record is actually another song called Carolina in My Mind by James Taylor. Similar to J. Cole moving to North Carolina at a young age with his mother, James Taylor back in 1951 had also moved to North Carolina when he was just 3 years old. The song that's playing on this intro is a track that Taylor wrote while he was in England, reminiscing on his childhood home in North Carolina. He had spoke on the song saying, I was thinking about my home in North Carolina and what it meant and stuff, and that just sort of came down out of the air. I suppose it's still my favorite song that I've written. It means a lot to me, that one. In the background of this song, you hear some people speaking, almost like they're on a street corner, observing the different cars that pass by, and when they spot a white car, they open gunfire. And that leads us then into the next song, 2-6. It was likely Cole in that car, driving back through his hometown, fresh off of dropping 2014 Forest Hills Drive. The song is high energy. Cole kicks it off, letting you know that people from the 2-6 are wild. And Cole comes in rapping with high energy on a celebratory vibe, saying, when I'm in the city, bees are screaming out my government. When I'm in the city, bees are screaming out Jermaine. And it's hard to tell in these first few bars if he's rapping about himself or to someone from his hometown when he says, please with the begging, that stuff is dwindling your relevance. We know your stuff is dropping, we ain't copying what you selling us. You were good in school, why are you hiding your intelligence? I remember you were getting A's and now you're failing us. Playing hard for the white boys that can't tell the difference. Caught a lot of bodies so my closet it got skeletons. Don't believe me? Call your favorite rapper for the evidence. Rolls Royce, please don't sell these rappers no more Cullinans, they're unoriginal, plus I know they don't be budgeting. Come in boy, I'm sunning them, they know I'm really one of them. Here he's almost picking up where he left off on 1985 Intro to The Fall Off, where he was giving rappers like Lil Pump some life advice in terms of not wasting the money that the label gives them because one day everybody falls off.
I know you think this type of revenue is never ending, but I want to take a minute just to tell you that ain't true. One day them kids that's listening gon' grow up.
And it almost sets the tone in terms of there's a celebratory vibe with Cole coming back to his hometown, people screaming out his name, but he's disappointed in what he's seen. Maybe it's what he's seen in himself or what he's seen in the people around him. Later in the song, he warns people who visit the Ville that they should probably lock their car if they're driving around, and he professes that he aims to keep a low profile. He's low on purpose. Now, the outro of this song seems to be a callback to what Cole was saying about how the first rhyme he wrote felt like he was getting a glimpse of heaven, a touch of heaven. Because remember, it was on this very trip to the Ville that he's describing in this song where Cole felt uninspired and built the concept of the fall off when he was debating with himself on whether or not he was satisfied with leaving the game at that point. He sings on the back end of this song, I couldn't see the sun, but I came to a glimmer of hope, 1,000 miles from heaven and a block away from the slums, adjacent to the hood just like the pointer is to the thumb. Be careful of the devil and the melodies you hum, smiling going viral while infecting all the young. I was lost back then, I was blind, deaf, and dumb, but I knew I'd find a way, fell off and fell on my face, but I knew I'd find a way. Then we get to the next track, Safety. On this song, J. Cole writes entirely from the voice of a childhood friend who still lives in Fayetteville, and the song plays out like a series of voicemail messages from the friend. The song essentially questions when J. Cole is coming home, shouting out different areas in his hometown like Bunce Road, Bragg Boulevard, Kane Road, Lewis Heights. On verse 1, Cole's friend explains that he's been locked up, but tries to downplay it so that Cole won't worry. He's careful to separate himself from people who use guilt or hardship to try and shake celebrities down for money, stressing that Cole is still just his dog and not a star to exploit. He reminisces about bumping into old friends, smoking, drinking, laughing like they used to, and scrolling Instagram, seeing how people age, fall off, or stay frozen in place. And there's a subtle sadness to the reflection. Low wages, no savings, time slipping away. But ultimately, this individual comes across as a loyal friend, someone who's been praying for Cole. By verse 2, this individual is in more of a survival mode. They understand that Cole is busy and can't always respond, and they start listing the losses that have been piling up back home. Overdoses, shootings, funerals that feel constant. He's incarcerated by this point, but he is worried about the fact that the younger generation seems quicker to indulge in violence than his generation was. And in contrast, his life keeps moving forward. He now has a daughter, and Cole's music literally calms her down, showing how Cole's presence still reaches back home, even when he's not picking up the phone. This will kind of reflect onto the later half of the album as well. Ultimately, he's happy that Cole made it out of their hometown, but he can't say the same for the rest of the city. There's a lot of jealousy, diss records floating around, and he even has the urge to retaliate violently to defend his friend Cole. But he ultimately resists by imagining what Cole would tell him.
Yo, somebody get Cole on the horn, tell him let's get it on, and we could battle on Forest Hill Drive outside on the lawn.
Now verse 3 is where things get the most painful. Death in the city feels non-stop, and the narrator reflects on one of their hometown friends by the name of Quay, whose illness and sexuality were misunderstood and rejected by their community. He lost his life. And the person sending this voice note to Cole reflects on how at one point they were cruel to this man, even catching himself before he could say the homophobic F slur, and he acknowledges how wrong they were to turn their back on someone who just wanted to live his life. That regret hangs over the rest of the verse as more names are added to the list of people who lost their lives. The man starts detailing funeral locations and times, requesting that Cole comes home to attend the wakes of his childhood friends. And on the next track, Run a Train, it seems like that's what Cole did. But it's here where Cole starts to question himself. He's asking whether the Jermaine that his old friends are reaching out to is even the same person anymore. He reflects on, how growing up in Fayetteville shaped him through the struggle that they all shared, the poverty, the violence, the limited options, and how all these conditions are what forged those deep friendships in the first place. But at the same time, he's honest about how success, his faith, and distance from the darkness of his hometown have changed him, even if the connection to home is still there. And the song feels like he's trying to explain himself, why he thinks differently now, why he moves differently, understanding that he can't stop the violence or change the way that his hometown functions, but choosing his friends and his moves wisely. On the next song, Poor Thang, Cole flips that perspective, telling a cautionary tale about a young guy caught in street life who mistakes violence and toughness for love and respect. The bars reflect growing up broke, surrounded by pride, money, hunger, and death, where sliding into crime feels normal and even necessary. The quote-unquote young pup wants affection, status, and escape, but instead he gets pulled into beef, guns, and impulsive decisions that are driven by ego. Cole shows how fantasies of women and wealth clash with the reality of their hometown, and it's typically led to an outcome of either jail or death. But it almost acts as a double entendre in Cole's situation as well, as chasing a dream of money, fame, women, etc. can also leave you bruised by your ego, and feeding into these war games will just leave you in more pain. Now here's where it gets interesting, because there's another rapper in the Ville whose pride got the best of him, who ended up dissing J. Cole, and Cole addresses it on the rest of the song. The rapper goes by the name of Space, and he actually has a diss song with 400 views on his YouTube channel, which dropped about a month before Kendrick's Like That record.
Snake sitting on top of the house, looking goofy, half black, half white, I just call him Snoopy. This a cold world, no iceberg sweater though. Fayetteville forever, yo. How you holding up a rock when I know that you soft and you can't call Jay-Z to figure this out for you? This little pump ain't finna sit on no couch with you and tell them Dreamville to fall the fuck back. I don't smoke, but I burn that whole Dreamville pack.
The description in this video basically says that 910 Space, aka The Kid, he helped J. Cole early in his career by bringing J. Cole to Jay-Z's Baseline Studios in 2006, helping him make connections, organizing Fayetteville club access, mixtape events, album release parties, and keeping him out of local beef, all for free. And he claims that Cole promised to always look out for him after getting signed, but he never did. So that's why all these years later, he's now dissing Cole. Now remember, a couple songs before this, Cole's friend is talking to him through a voice note in jail, saying that the people back home are dissing Cole. Well, here on this song, Cole reflects on it, saying that Space now adopts a fake gangster persona, but back in high school, he was known as a geek and came from a stable two-parent upbringing. Cole says he'll be back in Fayetteville and that they can fight it out, but with no guns. And the song concludes with Cole saying, "If I take an L, I won't feel no way, because I've been through lots of things." And on the outro, you hear him actually trying to make a call, but it goes to voicemail. This is possibly Cole trying to call back his friend who was calling him from jail that Cole never responded to. Or it could possibly be a love interest, because on the next song, Cole most definitely seems unstable. I mean, he's unstable in the decision to try and fight this local rapper who's been dissing him, right? And on the next song, he's calling someone who won't pick up. This song, Legacy, Cole is basically describing an on and off connection with a woman who he keeps going back to even though he knows it won't work. He's drunk, he's traveling, he's texting her late. They keep going through the same cycle over and over again. Linking up, falling apart, doing it over again. He admits that he has commitment issues at this point. He's been chasing other women, chasing after lust, and he's scared to fully give himself because he doesn't want to get hurt or lose control. And at the same time, he regrets letting her go and recognizes that his fear, his selfishness, his constant moving around are ultimately what ruined their relationship. Now, on the Inevitable podcast that Cole did about a year before this album released, he described the situation pretty clearly. This was around the time that Born Sinner had released. Cole had been in a long-term relationship, but at the time, he's out in LA, recording, working out there, going to Hollywood parties, getting kind of caught up in the lust, and it's damaging his creativity as well. Like Cole said when he was describing the fall off, this came at a time when he was at a crossroads in his life, not just with his career, but with his woman. On the career side of things, he's out in LA and not really getting the full inspiration he needs to tap into his true potential. So that's when he kind of brings it back to the basics. He stops recording in these big Hollywood studios, instead just records in his room by himself. That is the environment that he says he gets his best workout. And as far as his relationship goes, this was the moment where he didn't only realize that his career needed a change of environment, but so did his love life. He couldn't be surrounded by the lust because he would give into it, and he's on the road traveling all the time, not fully taking care of his relationship. And on the next song, we see Cole break down and reflect even further on where he's at this point in life. Bunce Road Blues sees Cole torn between staying connected to the people he loves and wanting to step away to fix himself. He questions street violence and self-hate, asking why people that's looking like us end up killing each other while the system, quote-unquote, stuffs us in cells. And he admits he's tired of who he's become, calling the verse a suicide note, saying that he doesn't even want the role of J. Cole anymore. He wants to rebuild himself. The main idea keeps coming around to the same question. Will you be around when I'm ready? He wants the person he loves to be happy, even if that means letting him go, but he's scared to leave them alone. Basically, it's Cole at a conflict, not knowing whether he should stay or leave, what would cause less damage, essentially. On the next track, Cole regains his confidence and kind of understands clearer who he truly is. He reasserts his name and origin, saying, I was making sure they refer to my first and my last name, Jermaine Cole, with Hall of Fame flows, from Kane Road with Kane's soul on the dang low. Cole paints the picture of how when he was growing up in Fayetteville, he was kind of on the outskirts of the danger, right? He was never involved in gang activity, in violence, but he definitely witnessed it. He'd be walking around with his Walkman, music blasting in his ears as he witnessed someone getting shot. And while people are interacting with the wrong individuals, dealing drugs, selling drugs, he's on the path of trying to become a star. So his own form of an interrogation room will be through Zane Lowe interviews, not police. Now, obviously coming from, this dark place of violence and being the only one to make it out, kind of comes with some survivor's remorse, but also a weird duality of, wanting to remain close to the people within your hometown while also needing to survive by, dodging the stakes, avoiding danger, feeling guilty that you can't change it, but keeping a distance so you don't get sucked back into it. Cole explains that feeling on the song Drum and Bass, where he reflects on the fact that he's pushing people away, but carries, a strong mental weight from making it out of his neighborhood. He says that most people don't really understand his position, and the respect he gets often comes mixed with jealousy and hidden hate. Likely because, as he puts it on verse 1, you hear my words, but don't got no clue about who I really am. He rejects the idea that he survived because he was ruthless, and he explains instead that he merely swam through violence and drugs and chaos. He questions how anyone stays spiritually clean in a world that's contaminated with sins. Ultimately, rapping became his outlet and his protection, and his writing was his greatest win. When he goes back home, he feels the dark vibe of his city. mothers crying on steps, young guys turning violent. There's a constant theme throughout these early songs on the track list where Cole reflects on how a lot of people from his city chase ego and chase power and use violence as a tool to attain it. And he feels guilty coming back home because, as he puts it, I feel powerless to change the power that is. A part of me is yelling loud as crap, you're not trying your best. I'm too busy selling out arenas and flying on jets. Life on cloud 9 and I can't deny it, I guess. I'm living my dream. My life is my childhood wish. The guilt that comes along with that is the size of the rest of the planet. By the end of this song, Cole makes his way to a club with his friends. Remember, he's visiting his hometown again after just dropping Forest Hills Drive. He's 29. In the club, still driven by lust, he spots a girl that he hasn't seen since his childhood, and thinking now, hey, I'm now the best rapper alive, maybe I might have a chance with her at this point. He's drunk and he goes and shoots his shot. Meanwhile, as he's talking to her, you get a bunch of random people coming up to him, trying to get pictures, trying to talk to him, whatever the case is. He thinks he's safe in his hometown without security. This situation is then transitioned into the next song, The Let Out, which is a double entendre with let, not just meaning like he got let out of the club, but also meaning the lead's out, aka the bullets. Because as J. Cole is stumbling drunk back into the club, a stranger gives him a tip that he's been watching a group of guys in that club looking at J. Cole and plotting to do harm to him. All the reflection in earlier tracks when Cole comes back to his hometown having that guilt that he couldn't really or didn't try to make the change in his hometown and violence is plaguing the city is now coming to impact Cole directly. Cole wanted to be relatable to the people in his hometown. He questioned earlier on this track list if they still loved him for him or if he was completely detached from the person that he grew up as because he no longer bonded with them through the shared struggle they had as children. Because of that, he's trying to overcompensate by recapturing that childhood nostalgia, walking around with no security, pretending like he isn't this massive celebrity. Doing so because he feels guilty that he left his hometown behind and it got plagued by violence. But meanwhile, that violence is coming right back to target a now unsecured Cole. Everyone ends up getting kicked out of the club. The girl is putting her hands on Cole, trying to seduce him, and Cole is essentially just trying to survive. This is a really cinematic song and another great example on this track list of pretty strong storytelling from Cole, vividly capturing the moments and emotions behind this visit back to his city. Now, forgive me because this album came out literally hours before I'm recording this, so some of this could have been interpreted incorrectly. At first, I thought that this song was about Cole cheating on, his long-term girlfriend with this random woman in a club, but now when you look deeper into the next song, it seems like this woman may have actually been his long-term girlfriend who he rekindled the flame with at this club, because on the next song, Bombs in the Ville / Hit the Gas, Cole is talking about how he wants to lock it down with this woman who he was hugged up in the parking lot outside the club with, and that there's bombs in the Ville, but when the smoke clears, you is who I'll find. Now, this is a 2-part track, and on the next part, he flips the concept a bit, no longer talking to a love interest, but instead to his younger self. He quote-unquote bought an iPhone that travels through time, and he FaceTimes a younger version of himself. That younger version sees the gray hairs that Cole has grown and immediately starts crying, thinking that maybe he wasn't able to accomplish his dreams. Cole reassures him that everything will be fine, to trust the process, and then the older Cole shows the younger Cole his sons as a way to say, look, does it look like I took the wrong path? You have these beautiful children now. And it's here where he really reflects on the concept of the actual fall off, rapping, fame is a drug you was chosen to take. Unfortunately, you can't be sober and great. You're just like a flower the world wants to hold. They sniff on your petals until you get old, and then they dispose. A new flower grows. You can't take that personal, that's just how it goes. Soon you're going to know that your high's coming down, and that's the point that I'll call you from now. This is the fall off. I'm falling off how? The rappers do when they can't find a new sound. Missing the day they were hotter year round. But life is a film that cannot be rewound. And I believe it's here where Cole is kind of looking back on the ups and downs of his come up, potentially the lust that he was chasing at a certain point in time, and realizing that you have to take the good with the bad, right? Fame is a drug that he had to take to become the person he became. You belong to the people when you're trying to build this legacy and this greatness. But as you get older, the world will dispose of you, right? You got to make way for new superstars, new people to come in and be great and take your shoes. Nothing lasts forever, but you can't go back in time. So you got to appreciate where you are and not cling on to the legacy that you already built. And this is where we get into the final song off of disc 29, where Cole really reflects on certain artists who maybe didn't have the same clarity he did to realize that at some point everybody falls off. And instead they were caught chasing that old feeling that they can't recapture. But Cole captures it from an interesting perspective. Instead of watching all his favorite artists fall off, on Lonely at the Top, he's actually in the position where he wants to help his favorite artists find that spark again. Chasing those guys is how he made it to the top. That's what helped him build his sound. And now that they might not be as motivated as he is, he wants to return the favor and help them. But there's a duality to it, because at the same time, he's watching all of these artists that, really gave him the initial spark that he needed. They're no longer around, or they're unmotivated, which in turn unmotivates him because he looks around and there's nothing he can relate to at this point. All of his heroes, quote unquote, either disappeared or their sounds so deflated. He compares it to being on the playground, being a young kid watching all the older kids sliding on the monkey bars, just hoping one day he'll be strong enough to do the same. But now he's the one on the playground and no one's there anymore. It's vacant. They got too comfy. He raps, "The big boys done skated, their pockets got too grown, for some it seems that the love is gone, and now they pass the time with expensive glasses of wine at locations with the finest accommodations. And I'm not hating, I'm just thinking more so about complacence and the realization that one day that's what my fate is." And at the end of this track, you see Cole really looking in the mirror because he thinks he's going to gain that creative spark back in himself, or that fulfillment back, by inspiring the artist who inspired him to be inspired again, if that makes sense. Like, the Jay-Z's, the 50 Cents at this point, remember, he's rapping this from the perspective of a 29-year-old who had just released 2014 Forest Hills Drive. Think about what the greats were doing. All those posters you saw hung up on the wall in the album cover, from 50 Cent to Cannabis to Exhibit or Beanie Siegel, what were they doing in 2014, right? Cole is thinking, maybe if I can help these guys get inspired again, that'll in turn heat up the climate and the competition within the genre, and that will help me regain the flame in my pen. But once he looks in the mirror, he realizes it's not my favorite artist who changed, and in turn that's why I can't create good music. It's that I've changed and I can't find the inspiration within myself. And it's here where Cole professes that it's lonely at the top, but if you are able to make it to that spot, you have to realize that it won't last forever, and you have to be okay with letting it go. But that isn't where Cole would let things go. This is where we get disc 39. Same location, 10 years later. Cole is wiser, older, and at peace. Possibly. I don't know about at peace, but definitely in a sharper mindset. He kicks off the verse of the 39 intro, rapping, "I'm pleased to report after many attempts I climbed up from the mountain of the gritty abyss, the antonym of idiot. Whose witty is this? My mind frame has been trained with NVIDIA chips. My rhymes are like shines for the city I miss, remembering times I found beauty in the hideousness." A lot of themes on this album of going back to his city and, witnessing the darkness that surrounds it, but finding beauty in it, connecting with the things that shaped Cole's greatness to begin with. And this intro is really Cole just professing that he's re-inspired, right? He says here, they try to put my neck inside of a noose. It's not happening, right? That he loves to use the neck in the noose rhyme scheme. It used to be, I put your favorite rapper's neck in a noose. Now it's, they tried to put my neck in a noose. And again, this is coming right after the beef, right? Cole is back home, rejuvenated. His head is held high. He concludes this trap saying, "Never in my life did I think I'd see the day where people want to play with my name. But okay, the children that survive the lows and highs, their will never die. We multiply. The history you're told is mostly lies. You say you want the truth? Well, close your eyes." And that leads us into the track that is now called The Fall Off Is Inevitable. You guys might know it as Disc 2, Track 2. This was the initial song that J. Cole previewed, where again he's rapping his entire life in reverse order, really trying to drive the idea home that everybody inevitably has to fall off, whether it's literally dying, laying on your deathbed, or, being at the top of your game but having to pass the torch to the new guy up. The circle of life is inevitable. And I already broke that track down in a previous video you guys could check out, so I won't do too much of that, but I did just think it's interesting that in this entire song, not only is Cole rapping the sequence of events that happen in his life from the end to the beginning, like in reverse order in terms of the song starting with him dying and then going all the way until he's actually born, but every action that he describes in the song is also happening in reverse. Like, instead of actually placing the ring on his wife's finger, he actually removes the ring. It's like the reverse effect, right? Instead of coming out of his mother's womb, he's going into it. So just really impressive rhyming on this track overall. On the next track, The Villist, it's almost like Cole is starting fresh again. Remember, the last song, The Fall Off is Inevitable, he's doing everything in reverse order, and it ends with him actually being born again. Possibly a metaphor to represent how he was re-inspired at the age of 39. And it's on this next track, The Villist, where he starts off by quote-unquote dusting off the old notebook where a younger Jermaine Lamar wrote hooks to get a glimpse at what his hopes looked like back in his younger years, and found a page stained with what seemed to be 100 tears. Cole reflects on how there was a lot of fear and struggle when he was, really in the early stages of becoming a rapper. He remembers how he was pushing himself to persevere, to go hard no matter what. He reflects on being broke, making beats himself, pouring pain into his delivery. But at the same time, this song and really this entire album, it's a reflection not just of his love and his growth within hip-hop, but also within his hometown, right? And aside from really struggling to write these bars and improve these rhymes at an early age, he also struggled to survive where he grew up. He had to harden himself emotionally. He had to learn that a tough exterior was the safest way to move. He said, the best of survival to deflect the most aggressive arrivals. But he also acknowledges that there is a cost to being prideful, right? To leading with ego. Rapping, pride is a bitter pill indeed, but it's best if you swallow. Because if not, and you feed into your ego and you lead with violence, it ultimately leads to your death, your untimely demise. Your homie's gonna pay respect with a bottle. He reflects on the loyalty that he has with his friends, also admitting that some people thought he was less or viewed him as less because he was mixed race, but he's confident that in the end, quote unquote, they're all going to respect the mulatto. Ultimately, these are all the fears, struggles, thoughts that Cole is reading from an old notebook that a young Jermaine had written in. And the second verse deals more with the themes that we saw on disc 1, which include things like grief, survival's guilt, and the limits of success. Cole admits that some of his hardest thoughts are things that he can't even say out loud, so instead he numbs himself with alcohol, hoping it'll wash away the sins. He reflects on growing up without guidance or a clear path to winning, and he was surrounded by people who were already lost. And the core of this verse is about a guy named James, a close friend of Cole's who was killed. He witnessed the medics perform CPR and hauled his body away, and that the memory still haunts him, especially knowing the fact that their fathers were close. He questions why someone as talented and as smart as him was taken, why he was the one who survived, questioning ultimately how life actually works. He wonders why survival doesn't feel fair. He raps, if Darwinism states only the stronger makes it, then why am I here if I don't think I'm as great as him? If Pac is Jesus, then I ride around and play the hymns. Which is Cole again showing that he leans on music for fulfillment. The next song, Old Dog, we get some interesting lines here, alright? The chorus goes, 2-6 was the blueprint, yeah, it made me. Old dog with some new tricks, atta baby. No more record deal, yeah, I'm fresh up out of slavery. That's a crazy way to describe the record deal that Cole got out of, right? We know that he ended up paying Jay-Z for his masters back in around 2024, at least that's when he announced it. And a lot of the Dreamville artists had said that Cole actually gave them back their masters as well. But here you have Cole talking about the deal as if it was a slave deal. Interesting.
Spicy.
What also gets a little spicy is in the verse, Cole says, heard blank talking down, then it's F him too. Now, when I say blank, it was literally they blanked out whatever name he was saying was talking down on him, right? But who could that be? And also, that's a little nod back to what Kendrick was doing on Whacked Out Murals when he literally left like an entire bar empty for you to interpret what he was trying to say. And this is Cole just kind of celebrating where he's at right now, talking about how he bought a bunch of land in his hometown. He's an old dog with some new tricks. Ultimately, he's feeling good. The next couple of songs see Cole kind of pen love letters to his woman, right? This is 10 years later when Cole has finally settled down into monogamy, right? He's raising kids with this woman. He's married at this point. There's no more chasing after lust. He is fully settled down. You could see that he's really at peace with his relationship, and Burna Boy comes in on the track Only You to deliver a little, melodic verse of his own. I like how he didn't really have any rap-heavy features on this track list, similar to his older albums. He just kind of let the vocalists like Thames, Burna Boy, and Future add, just an elevation to the storyline that Cole is telling here. On the song Man Up Above, it seems Cole is making a lot of callbacks to the song Safety earlier on in the track list. Remember, he had the friend from jail who was sending him voicemails from jail, updating, on what's going on in Fayetteville and asking Cole to come back to attend funerals for people that they knew in their childhood. Well, on Man Up Above, Cole is reflecting on the memories of attending his friend's wake, and also a man who is facing time who, before he got incarcerated, had a child and was now going through a big custody battle with the mother of said child while he was incarcerated. It almost seems like this is kind of Cole rapping the same story we heard earlier on the album, but now from his own perspective instead of the perspective of his friend. And ultimately, Cole doesn't really have a solution to provide for, the tragedies that he's witnessing here, but he says that his friend did end up turning to God, rapping, his thoughts deflated, somewhere along the way he lost his faith, but now he reads the Bible hoping God will see him contemplative. He's praying now, even through some gospel on his playlist. Tears falling, Marvin Sapp never would have made it. And on the first verse, with Cole detailing a lot of the violence that he witnessed, saying that you should always be turning to God, it seems like that's kind of the through line in this story, in that the way you'll make it through these tough situations is by leaning on your faith. And that could be kind of applied to any aspect of life, even the fall off itself, right? When you feel like you're strained away from your path, it's important to remember the mission that God set out for you. And with that, you get Cole rapping about the path that was set out for him. I Love Her Again. This track to me could be the best song on the album. It flips Common's song, The Light, and tells a story about hip-hop, using a woman as a metaphor for hip-hop to describe his ups and downs and his come up in the game and his thoughts on the battle with Drake and Kendrick.
I study rap battles for a living.
Cole described how he first got introduced to hip-hop. Back when he was just a jit hanging on the strip, she's the girl that I would see in every guy's whip. Again, the girl is hip-hop, right? He would hear hip-hop music coming out of people's cars. That's how he first got introduced to it. I was much too young to truly know what constitutes the difference between a girl next door and a PROS tattoo. Basically, he didn't know if this was something he should commit to or just something he should, indulge in casually, right? Should he really pursue this career of being a rapper? People around Cole are telling him that hip-hop kind of fell off. She's all about the money now. I heard what they were saying, but to me, she seemed pure. And when he talks about dating her, really he's talking about being her number one, right? Being the best rapper alive. But in his eyes at this point, he's just a youngin', and he wanted to date her, but there was no way for him to ask, and she's with all these other guys. He says he went to college in New York because he heard that she was there. Remember that Cole described the Come Up album, or the mixtape, as him actually coming up to New York to pursue his dreams. But sadly, he says when he got there, she disappeared. He caught her at the airport, and when he saw her there, she said she's moving to the A, aka Atlanta, because as you guys know, in the early 2010s when Cole was coming up, the Atlanta sound was taking over the world, right? In hip-hop specifically. And Cole says, my heart was broken, dog. I wanted to be where she was at, but I was happy in a way that the South was on the map. Because before this, New York definitely controlled the sound of hip-hop in the West as well. But the South really got put on when T.I., Lil Wayne, Young Jeezy, Ludacris, Lil Jon, etc. They started dominating the 2000s, and that led into Gucci Mane and then Future. You guys know the rest. And he's really creative with the way that he kind of describes this time period, talking about how, people in the barbershop were saying that hip hop changed since she left New York City. She got whack. They wanted her back. but said it sounded like she was trapped, aka trap music, a double entendre there. They hated the slang she used, the way her fingers snapped. It's funny how the tables turned several years later. These would be the same dudes that started saying the stuff was cap, because cap was slang that they were initially hating on, then they started to use it. They hated the way her fingers snapped. You remember songs like Lil Jon, Snap Your Fingers, Do You Step? Then Cole details how he initially got his come up, saying, I found her on the internet, kept up with her like that. When I dropped the mixtape, she said she liked the way I rapped. And here's where Cole starts really dating her, right? This is when Cole starts running the game, but this is also when the big three starts clashing, and he starts reflecting on it later in the song when he raps. She said, I gotta tell you, I rocked a lot of fellas, but with you there's something special. I think you could be the one, because Cole, thinks he's Muhammad Ali. Now when it comes to love, jealousy will often creep. That type of game is why two of my homies start to beef. To both of them, she said, you're the best I ever had. And the whole time that B was saying the same type of stuff to me. Basically, they all wanted that crown, right? And the jealousy, Cole is saying, is what ended up leading them to beef. They all wanted to be the best within hip-hop, the best hip-hop has ever had. By the end of this song, Cole kind of starts saying how he doesn't even recognize hip-hop at this point. She's indulging in, Percocets and OnlyFans and all this, BBLs and toxic stuff, right? But the same way in that album trailer, Cole was trying to express to the world that, instead of looking at rappers falling off, we should remember that everything is in a cycle and no one can stay at the top forever, and we should just admire people for even getting to that position in the first place. He ends up resolving his issues with hip-hop in a similar manner, saying, I need to stop judging and accept her. The problem from the start is I was just trying to possess her and have her for my own. Didn't want to let her roam. Mama said you should have known she was like that when you met her. Basically here it's Cole understanding that you can't be at the top forever, but he does have an outro on the track where he kind of alludes to the fact that he'll always be in the game no matter what, saying that me and hip-hop, we try to make amends, we reminisce on old times and play the latest trends. As long as she's alive, I know I'll always have a friend. I think I'm falling back in love with her again. So is this Cole saying that he's regained the flame that will not allow him to leave the game? Who knows? I guess only time will really tell. But on the next song, he makes more allusions to hip-hop and all of its legends, where he's kind of reflecting on the beef, but in kind of an interesting way as well, where basically he's rapping from both the perspective of Tupac and Biggie. Biggie in verse 1, Tupac in verse 2, and it's essentially at the height of the Bad Boy Death Row beef, right? As you guys probably know, especially if you recently watched that 50 Cent Diddy documentary, Tupac and Biggie started off as friends. Tupac actually showed Biggie a lot of support early on.
What you want? 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 Bathroom passes, cut classes, we laugh. And go.
And Diddy, who had been studying Tupac's every move, tried to implement a lot of the sauce, the look, the aesthetic of Tupac into everything Biggie did. Pac was fine with that, he embraced it, but when he got shot at Quad Studios, he believed that Diddy had been a part of it. And then you get Who Shot You, which wasn't necessarily in relation to that event, but the song just kind of sounded eerily similar to the sequence of events that had happened with Tupac. So Tupac goes on to say that he thought Diddy and Biggie were behind that hit, and then of course you get Hit 'Em Up, and then the whole East Coast, West Coast Death Row Bad Boy beef, right?
Do you think Puffy was involved in the shooting?
Only they can answer that question. Right. I have my own opinion, but I wouldn't slander their name like they did mine. Right. I wouldn't say things that I knew, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I believe so. I do believe so. I have proved things that I could say that will back up my claim, but this is not for the world to know about. It's between me and him, and only he knows.
So Cole is kind of taking both their perspectives here, painting the picture of what would have happened if they just apologized to each other. In the first verse, the Biggie verse, Cole ends it off saying, not knowing most drama only leads to more killings. Well, F that, my guy, I'm hurt. I miss my dog. I ain't gotta hide. If I hurt you, I apologize. And in the Tupac verse, Cole raps, I know stuff got out of hand. I'll take the blame for it. For my mistakes, I couldn't take you getting slain for it. For falling victims to ego, vengeance, and dollar signs, I want to say from the heart, I apologize. And on the chorus, Cole is reflecting on what if he can, turn back the hands of time and avoid the BS from getting in the way. Now, the theme of reversing time in this album comes up a lot. Obviously, you have the whole song where Cole is rapping his life in reverse order, but disc 1 also ends off with Cole again FaceTiming his younger self, really reflecting on his legacy from the moment he came up to the moment that he's basically on his deathbed, trying to define what it means to fall off. And we kind of get a clearer perspective of what Cole feels like legacy or a fall off means to him on the next song, Quick Stop, where he recounts the moment of being at a gas station in his hometown. A guy comes up to Cole offering to sell him some weed. Cole declines, but then he recognizes J. Cole, and he tells Cole that Cole's music had helped him through a lot of tough times, a lot of dark times within his life. And that's when Cole realizes that all of this, everything you've worked for, it's not about gaining riches or fame or whatever the case is. It's really about the difference that you make to the people who are touched by either you or your work. And on the final track, The Whole World Is the Ville, Cole flips the mirror, saying that you shouldn't look to him for your therapy, but you should look inwards, and that you should be talking to the mic for your own therapy. And along with that, he's kind of just detailing, his come up and his whole life in the Ville, the best moments he shared there, and elements from his hometown that now define his character. And that's where we end. The Fall Off, guys. As I'm recording this, it is 7 a.m., all right? I listened to this album, I pressed play at like midnight, so just drop a like for the fact that I just spent the last 7 hours digging through these lyrics. I spun the album back twice, and we did this full breakdown front to back. I'm hoping to deliver it to you guys by the time you're watching this. I don't know, maybe it's Friday night. That's one thing I've definitely learned from Cole is like, if you love what you do, it doesn't really matter the outcome. It just matters that you enjoy the actual process. And that's what I'm out here doing, right? I wouldn't be out here recording till 7 a.m. if I wasn't loving the process, but I am going to go to sleep and then edit it in the morning. So you won't see this for another day, but I'll stop this rant here and move on to my rant about how I feel about this album. I'm not going to give you all my full-fledged thoughts right now because, again, only 2 spins of this project in full, and it's freaking 7 a.m. So we'll save, a full review of this project for another day. But let me give you my positives and negatives for the album. Let me start with the negatives, and we'll end this video off on a high note, right? All right, so what I think about the production overall, that's probably one of my biggest gripes with the project, is that it just sounds like very familiar sounds that I've heard Cole rap on in the past. And I don't say that in a way where I'm like, this is a perfect formula, just keep sticking with it. It's not bad per se, it just doesn't stand out enough. I really like Cole when he's on some more experimental stuff for his standards, like even something like a GOMD where you get these like interesting drum patterns and stuff, something that kind of forces Cole to rap in a more energetic pocket, or A Tale of Two Cities or 92 South. I can name you a million songs, but like something that just sparks a little more aggression in J. Cole. I would have loved to see that because I feel like a lot of these beats were very laid back, which provided a good canvas for Cole to kind of paint like a really vivid picture or do a lot of flexible storytelling on. And he was definitely doing that. We'll get to that in the positives of this album. But I feel like the production could have been a little more lively, a little more exciting. There was not one memorable hit off this project, which I know that's not what Cole was going for. But if this is really going to be your final album, or you want to look back on this as like the pinnacle of your career, don't you want to have something that maybe you can play at like your child's wedding in 10 years from now? You talk about College Dropout all the time. I don't hear a Through the Wire here. I also think that Cole was doing a lot of singing on this project, which is fine, but it wasn't in a way that was implemented to the best of Cole's singing abilities. I know that sentence doesn't really make sense. Again, forgive me, it's 7 a.m. But you look at songs like No Role Models, right, which are really tight with their song structure. Like, you have amazing hooks on that project where Cole is definitely singing, but the vocals aren't stretched so long. The bridges don't feel like they're dragging on forever. It's not so repetitive or monotonous. Like, a lot of the singing here just kind of feels like Cole's a bit on autopilot. It's a bit of filler within the song itself. There's also several songs where it's kind of hard to follow the concept fully, in terms of like, on half the song he'd be talking about, a love interest or a love story, and then the second half of the track he'd be talking about like, killing in the Ville and the violence in the Ville. I also still don't feel like there was like a full resolution to the overall concept of the fall off. I do understand the idea behind embracing the fact that, no one can be great forever. So you have to accept that at some point everyone falls off, and you can't really be overly possessive over hip hop or over your craft. You just kind of have to, use it as therapy, right? Use your writing as a source of therapy. But there were a lot of questions left unanswered, like, is this retirement for J. Cole? Does he feel satisfied with his catalog when you look at it front to back? What does he feel like the highlights are? The lowlights. I feel like a lot of the stories told on this album were actually told better in his Inevitable podcast. But that's the negatives I have. There are a lot of positives at the same time, don't get me wrong. And my judgment could be clouded not by the fact that it's 7 a.m., but by the fact that, this was kind of teased as Cole's magnum opus, something he worked 10 years on. So I was really expecting to be blown away and for this to easily by far be my favorite Cole album of all time, and also to shake up the game in a big way. Like, I thought this would scare other rappers into stepping their pen up on another level, and sadly I don't think it's going to do that. I think it'll live on as a great album in Cole's catalog, or a good to great album, but I don't think it's going to really cause a seismic shift in hip hop. But that's just me. Now on to the positives. Ultimately, I think Cole really did a good job at keeping the concept cohesive throughout the project. Like, above all else, this does not feel like, just an album scraped together full of random songs. There is a story behind this thing, and it's almost like inconvenient to listen to individual tracks without the full album being played front to back in order. That's how tight knit I feel like he kept the themes, the subject matter, the sound, and just the sequencing of this project. I think he did a good job there. I don't think there was enough variety on the production side, or even the subject matter side for that matter, to make it feel, maybe as exciting or as captivating as his other projects like For Your Eyes Only or Forest Hills Drive or Born Sinner, but a lot of good storytelling here. I feel like Cole opened up more than maybe he did on the offseason, even though I think I like that album better. That's a bias, though. For whatever reason, I really love the offseason. I think that's one of the best albums this decade. I think maybe the track list here was too long, but I do think it also showcases some of Cole's best performances of his career. Safety, the verse on 39 intro, I Love Her Again, What If, drum and bass, and then the transition into the Let Out. Like, there are very strong moments on this track list. I also think he did a good job at kind of closing the chapter on the whole beef thing, right? I honestly think it was hilarious that he made Biggie and Pac apologize to each other in a metaphorical way to say that he wishes, him and Kendrick and Drake can all apologize to each other. You guys want to reflect on what is absolutely hilarious here. So Kendrick Lamar, right? He uses Tupac as a device within To Pimp a Butterfly to reflect on the hardships, the cycles of oppression, the frustrations felt with the way that Black Americans were being treated within society, right? Then you had Drake, who used Tupac as a device to essentially diss Kendrick or speak through Drake to request that Kendrick discuss his PDF allegations, and then goes on to sue him. But really all this derived from Drake using Tupac's voice to taunt Kendrick into talking about this stuff. But then you have Cole, who ends up using Tupac as a device to request that all three of these guys apologize to each other. So one guy used Tupac to talk about, the plight of the people within his community. The other guy used Tupac as a device to request PDF rumors be brought up so he could sue over them. And then the final guy used Tupac as a device to request that everyone apologize to each other. I'll leave you guys with that, all right? It was a solid album, 7.3 on 10 for me off of 2 spins, but I'll give you guys a more in-depth opinion on it once I get some sleep, maybe, all right? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.